Hello everyone, Somber here. I'm just going to run through the latest update to the Somber Warhammer compilation mod that contains the 18 Warhammer nations for Dominions 5. Lots of nice new changes and a bunch of new content, mostly adding heroes to various nations, but some balance changing balance changes and bug fixes as well. So I thought I'd just run through the changelog. When I run into a hero, I'm going to try and show you the hero in Dominion so you can have a quick look at them and pause the video and see their stats and everything. But let's crack on with it. So first up, we have Chaos Dwarfs, and we've got a fix to a bug with the Hobgoblin Scout and Hobgoblin Sneak. Their leadership was at 40, which was too high. They're being used as leads and things, so they're greatly reduced, and there's no leadership at all on the Scout anymore. The cost of the Slaver was considerably decreased because Slavers weren't a very good option before for the cost, so they should be a bit more attractive now. I did some renaming of dwarf armor and weapons that were just called like dwarf shield, dwarf axe, and so on to use terms like quality rather than just dwarf, just kind of for a flavor change. And the slave giant's gold cost was reduced from 240 to 220. In general, you'll see some reductions to the cost of giants because I think they're a bit overcosted before. They may still be overcosted. They're quite difficult to use, so we'll just see how people get along with them. Moving on to the dark elves. Firstly, a fix. The Demonettes no longer have a better version of the claw that was used by the Slaanesh faction counterparts. And in general, you'll see from these changes, I have made sure that the Dark Elves basically just have worse versions in the pleasure cult of the demons that the Slaanesh has, at least when the demons for the Slaanesh faction are in their dominion, they're better than the Dark Elf equivalents. They kind of sit halfway in stats between the in-dominion Slaanesh versions and the out-of-dominion Slaanesh versions. I removed death recruitment discounts from hags and witch elves and then reduced their gold costs to compensate for this. This was something I hadn't really thought through as a flavor thing, so I don't really want to incentivize death recruitment and taking death scales in the dark elves particularly. It didn't really work. Summoned Seeker Pack, the spell was increased in slave cost from 40 to 46 because it was a little bit too cheap compared to the Slaanesh version, from what I recall. The Demonette Seeker and Heralds of Slaanesh were made slightly worse stat-wise than the Slaanesh national versions. Pretty self-explanatory. The Dark Elves should not be better at Slaanesh stuff than the Slaanesh faction. Heralds of Slaanesh can now be male or female, which is just like in the Slaanesh version, because females can seduce males and males can seduce females in Dominions. That's just how mechanically it works. And they lost their hand slots. They were able to use items in their hands before, and they're not anymore. I added Fiends of Slaanesh, which are the same as in the Slaanesh nation, and you can now summon them up, and they also appear in some Cult of Pleasure events. And added the Fiend of Slaanesh and the spell to summon it. And the Demonette troop Bloodslave cost was decreased from 28 to 25. I made Demonettes cheaper in both Dark Elves and Slaanesh. Moving on to Dwarfs. There was a pretty serious bug with Dwarfs where their forts did not cost 50% more than normal, and that was intended all along, but because of a typo it wasn't turning up. So now they cost 50% more than normal, which is a significant nerf to the Dwarfs, but it was supposed to be there the whole time. They can build really good forts, so it's kind of to balance that out, and it's because the Dwarfs, flavor-wise, are not constructing lots of new outposts. They're kind of a dwindling race that's trying to reclaim their old glory and failing to do so for the most part. Joseph Bugman now has auto healer 1 from his tankard. He doesn't have auto healer himself. They previously were stacking, so he was just very fast at healing, which is a bit weird. And Crag the Grim now not suffering from old age, and Longbeards are a lot less likely to be suffering from old age. They're not described. Basically, dwarfs do get old and die from old age, but for Longbeards and for Crag, it didn't really make sense because they're supposed to be kind of better than usual despite being quite old. So that's just made Longbeard slightly better, and for Crag, it's mainly a flavor thing that he seems to be pretty ageless. The nation is now called Karazakarak, which means ever peak, instead of dwarfs. This is to better fit the Dominion style of nation names, which also work as province names. They're proper nouns rather than just being a description of like the race or whatever. And I've done this for a few nations. This is the first of them. Dwarfs is now known as Karazakarak. The Engineer and the Engineer Guildmaster got some extra precision. That helps them when they're casting their aim at the start of the battle, and it helps them firing their missile weapon. And it's just a nice little tweak. Dwarf Armor and weapons renamed, just like with the Chaos Dwarfs I mentioned earlier. And the Quality Shield, which is the Dwarfs, used to be called the Dwarf Shield, now has +1 parry, because it was basically just a normal shield with slightly higher protection before, and now it's a bit better than that. So it's somewhere between a shield and a kite shield in terms of how good it is. Moving on to the Empire. Grey Wizards no longer have Dark Power. This was really an over-the-top ability for them to have, and not very thematic, so I got rid of it. Jade Wizards no longer have Spring Power. It was previously in there at 1%, which really didn't do anything anyway, so I just got rid of it for simplicity's sake. And Light Wizard Lord had his auto healer reduced from 2 to 1, because again, that was a bit too extreme. Then the Noble on Griffin and the Noble on the Pegasus. I haven't put that in the notes, but that's also true of the Noble on the Pegasus for Nuln. They basically had previously had a combined profile where they had the hit points of both the mount and the rider, and now they just have the hit points of the rider, and then if the rider dies, you get the mount fight on for a bit before flying off, which is the Dominion's way of doing it, basically. Same thing for Karl Franz, same thing for Balthazar Gelt, who is on a Pegasus. So overall, I would consider that to be a nerf to those things, but it's to make them, work the same way as other Warhammer nations and work the same way as stuff in Dominions generally. The Greenskins North are now known as Black Crag. That's their nation name, which again is to fit the style of Dominion's naming better, and I'm pretty happy with Black Crag. That makes sense. That's the name of a very famous fortress in somewhat kind of north of the Badlands in the World's Edge Mountains. That's actually the one that's run by Gorfang Rotgut, who is a hero that they have. And Greenskin South is now known as Bone Nose Tribe. There wasn't really a big fortress that I could name them after that would make sense that was quite far south, like near the Southlands, so I just named them after the most famous tribe from the Southlands and the southern Badlands, which is the Bone Nose Tribe. But kind of like the Ogre Kingdoms are instead in my mod called the Gold Tooth Tribe. It just makes sense as a name. Bone Nose Tribe's epithet is now Green Horde of Fury rather than Primal Fury as well. So we've got Black Crag is Green Tide of Darkness, and Bone Nose Tribe is Green Horde of Fury, which kind of links them together a bit more thematically. The mages for the Orc and Goblins had 2 high hit points previously. I had quite a while ago I was giving them higher hit points because in the Warhammer game, wizards have lots of wounds, which makes them very tough to kill, but that's kind of unbalancing in Dominions where mages are already really good, and it makes sense for military commanders to have more wounds, but for mages it was a bit too strong and unbalancing for things like Earthquake and stuff that you would normally use to kill mages, so they've had their hit points decreased. But orcs are still tougher than regular humans, not as tough as big giant mages, but still tougher. Goblins and Nox Goblins have lower than human hit points now, especially on their mages. Added a gold cost in Turmoil 3 to the descriptions of recruitable things, so this will appear in the descriptions of the various commanders and troops that you can recruit, and it just tells you if you're in Turmoil 3 how much gold they're going to cost, which is just for readability purposes. Reduced the gold cost of Black Orcs because they're a bit too high. Reduced the gold cost of Giants, as I have mentioned, this is particularly looking at when they're in Turmoil 3, but they're now down to 200 from 230. And I'm now using a reduced size graphic on the recruitment screen for Giants. I was doing this in some other nations. It's just so they don't obscure other things when you're trying to click to recruit things. In the actual game itself, they have the proper sized graphic. And then we've got 2 heroes that I will go and have a look at now. Here is the Bone Nose Tribe National Overview. If we go to Luck Independent Heroes, it still says Southern rather than Bone Nose. I should potentially change that at some point, but anyway, here they are. You now have 2 more heroes appear. So you previously had Grom would appear, and now we've got Werzag the Great Green Prophet. So I'll bring them up so that you can pause this and have a look at him. I'm not really going to go into him in too much detail, but they've got Werzag, and this is what his item does. Cast a Mind Burn every round of battle. And they have the Fury of Gork, Grokka Gorax, who is a savage orc, kind of super boss basically, and here's his stats. Berserker 5. I'll just scroll over them. There we go. So that's the 2 heroes added to the Greenskins, both added to the Bone Nose Tribe. Let's move on to the High Elves. The High Elves have got 3 fixes here. Prince of Terranok now has the correct upkeep. He was upkeep free before, so that's fixed. The Great Eagle mount has a max age, same as the High Elves, so you don't get an old one if the multi-hero rider dies. Previously if the rider died, the hero would be the Eagle would be super old because he just gets the age that the rider had. And the Bond Lance and Talon spell is now correctly costing air gems and using the air path rather than water. That was just a typo on my part. Then the Prince of Terranok's gold cost was reduced 150 to 140, and I gave him a lance because he was slightly underpowered before. He may still be too expensive, really. Chariot leaders are not particularly exciting. The multi-hero Prince and the Great Eagle now can't appear before turn 6. He was turning up on like turn 2 for some people, and this is just pure luck, but it's just too strong if you get him really early. I may push this up to be even later, but for now it's turn 6. He can't appear before. He still shouldn't be turning up turns, 6 to 12, it's just not very likely he will, because there's only a certain percent chance each turn. Lawmasters can no longer cast Communion Master or Slave. That was making them a bit behave kind of not the way I intended them to behave, so they're just banned from casting Communion Master or Slave now, because they're arrogant, they just do stuff on their own. The Spearmen had a slight reduction in gold cost, and the Silverin Spearmen, because they were simply too expensive and people weren't really using them. Phoenix Guard, similar thing, I thought they were a bit overcosted, although I took away their poison resistance. And Sister of Avalon also got a gold cost reduction. So there's a few changes to the troops getting a bit cheaper there, so hopefully make them a little bit more attractive. It may not be enough, we will see. Priestess of Aisha, Auto Healer and Auto Disease Healer were reduced to 1 each. They were too strong previously. Yeah, just extreme values in Auto Healer can just be a bit too good. Even having Auto Healer at all is very exciting. So I removed the small research bonuses from the High Mage and Archmage because they weren't really relevant, so let's just clean things up. I removed Auto Disease Healer from all the non-Aisha mages. Previously, several High Elf mages that were kind of scholarly had the ability to heal diseases, but they've already got the Priestess of Aisha, so I may as well just use that. And I changed the Archmage leadership to OK from poor leader, so it used to be 10, now it's 40 leadership. It specifically mentions in the description and in their lore that they do sometimes lead small armies, so that kind of makes sense, but I didn't want to give them too much leadership. And the White Line of Grace Infantry is now recruitment limited to 5 a turn. They're not super common in the High Elf army, and apparently people were just building entirely armies of those because they are like hardest hitting infantry troop, I think. So yeah, it's just a little bit of an arbitrary artificial limit, but it hopefully gives people more incentive to make a bit more balanced armies, which is what I would prefer. And then we've got 2 heroes being added, so we'll go and have a look at those now. Here is the Ultheran Nation Overview. You get 1 new multi-hero, which is the Prince on Griffin. So here's his stats. And then you get 1 new hero, who is Eltharion the Grim, Warden of Tor Ivres, I believe that's pronounced, or Ivressa. Here he is. Here are his stats. You can see he's also a mage in addition to being a general on a griffin, and he has this fancy helm. Moving on to some fairly big balance changes to the Lizardmen. There's only 3 rows here, but these really are big balance changes. All Slann have their casting speed increase halved, so not their actual casting speed overall, but the amount that it's increased was halved. E.g., there were some that were 90% faster at casting things, and now they're only 45% faster than normal at casting things. This may still need further adjustment. Basically, people were able to do things like cast Master and Slave before people could get resistances up and stuff like that. So it was making the end game way too heavily favoured in the favour of the Slann. It was making the Lizardmen have too strong an end game and be too terrifying and basically just obnoxious and too hard to counter. Everything should be counterable, and they were becoming quite uncounterable. Skink Priest's gold cost was reduced from 120 to 100, and the hit points were reduced very slightly. People are going to be worried as soon as I'm saying Skink Priest decreased in gold cost because they're already extremely good value for money. But the reason that they were extremely good value for money and very attractive, made the nation extremely good as a research nation, was that they only had a commander point cost of 1, and that's gone up from 1 to 2. So you do start with 3 command points in your capital city, but it is very expensive for you to make forts. It's expensive for you to make temples. So it's not the easiest thing to build up places that can pump out tons of Skink Priests now, and you used to be able to pump out 3 every turn from your capital, which got you off to a ridiculously fast start in terms of research. So hopefully this will be more balanced. I'll be looking for feedback on this, but I'm hoping it does the trick. Moving on to the Ogre Kingdoms, Hunters got Unsurround 1 and Patrol bonus 5. They were a little bit, these are just thematic things really, but it might mean that Hunters can survive in melee a little bit more. And then we have 2 new heroes, which I will show you now. Here's the Goldtooth tribe, and both of their heroes are luck independent. The first of them is Greasus Goldtooth, the Over-Tyrant. Here he is, big chunky boy on his Rhinox. Here is his crown, and here are his stats. I'll just roll across these so people can slow down or pause to see what he does. There you go, that's Greasus. And then we also have the Great Hunter, Jared the Red. Starts with 5 Saber Tusks at the start of battle, and I'll just scroll over his abilities. And he automatically summons 2 Saber Tusks per month as well. Moving on to Slaanesh, we've got a fix. There was an ID conflict between the female cultist and one of the Chaos Spawns resolved, which was causing some weird problems, but I don't think this is actually too serious a thing. Mostly ID conflicts can cause really bad problems, but I don't think this one was too bad. But it's fixed anyway. Demon Princes were supposed to have Blood 2 always. There was a typo that meant they had Blood 3, so I have reduced that down. That should really be a fix, to be honest. The prices when in Turmoil 3 have been added in square brackets to the descriptions to help the player see how much everything costs. It just, helps people evaluate things faster. I gave some demon snow movement that didn't have it previously. I'd basically like everything in this nation to have snow movement. The Fiend of Slaanesh was reduced in slave cost. He was slightly underpowered. These are basically just me very slightly adjusting some of these demon spells because they were turning out to be a little bit underpowered, and I want to really emphasize how great they are for Slaanesh. They should be something that you're really transitioning to just having tons of demons. And then they get 2 new heroes, the graphics of which I am pretty happy with. So I'll show you those now. Here's the Slaanesh overview. Both of your heroes are luck independent heroes. So you already had the Prince of the Sorcerer Styrkar, and now you have the Prince of Damnation, Azazel. I'll just scroll through his stats. Yeah, pretty frightening. So he's basically a super good demon prince. And then we have the Ruination of Ultheran, Enkari, who is a sort of an upgraded Keeper of Secrets, basically. I'll just scroll through his stats. Moving on to Tylea, a couple of fixes. There were some problems with name types having some special characters in it. It was actually causing me quite a bit of trouble. I couldn't work out what was going on for a while, but I've worked out what it was. The name types are fixed. And the Jade Wizard now has Disease Healer, not True Healer, which is the same as the Empire College Jade Wizard. He just had diverged there, so that was a bug to be fixed. I have added hero multi-hero preview sites that weren't previously there. All of my nations will have those, so you can see what your heroes and multi-heroes are, except for vampires, where I can't put those in because I'm already using so many preview things to show their full lineups. So yeah, that's unfortunately not something I can do for vampires. Grey Wizards don't have Dark Power, Jade Wizards don't have Spring Power. This is the same as the Empire changes. Dwarf Weapons and Armor changed, we've already talked about that. Because they have some dwarf mercenaries, and the mercenary contract gold cost has been further decreased. I've already decreased this in gold cost quite a few times, but I'm decreasing it even more because I really want to incentivize mercenary contracts as one of the main things of Tylea, so they're getting cheaper again. I'm probably just going to keep reducing them in gold until somebody starts to say they're too good. That's my plan. Anyway, they're 320 now. And then I added 2 new heroes for Tylea. Here's the Tylean overview. Both of the heroes are luck independent. You get the Prince of Miragliano, which is Borgio the Besieger, or Borgio the Besieger, not sure. Here are his stats. Here is his item. And you get the Master Inventor, who is obviously Leonardo da Miragliano, and he is based on Leonardo da Vinci, of course. And here are his stats. And he casts Wind Guide at the start of battle. Moving on to Tomb Kings, Lich Priests and Necrotechs both got reduced hit points in line with mages generally and dominions. This is similar to the Greenskins. Basically, their mages just had too many hit points. And then they also get 2 new heroes. I will now show you those. Both of them are luck dependent heroes. Oh, sorry, I should say you only get 1 hero. Is that right? The Necrotech Visionary. So this is Ramhotep of Qatar. This is your Necrotech Visionary. Here are his stats. And he casts Summon Earth Power on battle start. The other change to Tomb Kings that I thought was a hero, but it isn't, is I added a new spell for Necrotechs to give quickness to constructs, but it's very difficult to cast, except your new hero, of course, finds it a lot easier because he's starts on E3 and then immediately Earth Powers himself to E4. But yeah, the other ones will need boosters or other things to get there, but giving quickness to constructs is pretty powerful. Moving on to vampires, I've changed the name of the nation. This is going to seem somewhat silly, but I'm fairly happy with it. I couldn't work out a good name for the vampires because they're made up of all these bloodlines that live in different places, and if I'd called it like Templehof or Drakenhof or Sylvania or something, or Lamia or Strigoi, this would only fit one of the bloodlines, not all of them. So I ended up just calling it Vampiria rather than just vampires, because Vampiria works as a province name basically. And then I added 2 heroes, 2 very popular heroes, Vlad and Isabella, the power couple of Warhammer. So let's have a look at them. Here is Vlad von Carstein, the von Carstein progenitor. Here are his stats. And Like the other von Carsteins, he loses flight in battle but can fly on the strategic map. I'm really happy with this sprite. It really makes me think of the classic Castlevania game. I'm sure you can guess which one. What is man but a miserable pile of secrets? Here is Vlad's wife, Isabella von Carstein. Similarly loses flight in battle. Basically, I'm really happy with the sprite. I got a bit of this sprite came from a sprite that Executor gave me, a very good modder called Executor, but I did the rest myself. I'm very happy with it turned out. She's got a kind of Bride of Frankenstein style haircut. Here are her stats. Her Farcaster is for Blood 1. Then, last but not least, we have some tweaks to the Wood Elves. We've got 2 fixes. Firstly, Araloth has got his correct name. He previously didn't have a fixed name of Araloth. And Glade Captain's got some magic leader because the Dryads that were in the province defense with the Wood Elves were just routing because there wasn't any magic leadership. So I've given Glade Captains the minimum that I can give them, basically. I added a Glade Lord on a Great Eagle multi-hero, which I will show you in a minute. And I added summon spells for Great Eagles and for the Glade Lord on a Great Eagle, so you can summon those up using nature and air gems, I believe. And then I added Orion as a hero and the Hound of Kernos units that go with him. Orion is a bit different from other heroes in that he's guaranteed to turn up in mid-spring of year 1, so not right at the start of the game, but kind of after 12 turns, I think it is, or 10 turns or so. And every winter he dies, and he is spring immortal, so kind of a weird thing. And I'm quite happy with this how his graphic turned out, so I'll show you that now. Here is the national overview for Athalloran, the Wood Elves. We've got one new multi-hero, the Glade Lord on a Great Eagle. Let's see his stats here. And of course, he's better in forests and worse outside of forests. And then we also have the luck independent hero, the King of the Woods, Orion. And Orion also comes with Hounds of Kernos. I'll show you Orion's stats. So he dies every winter, no matter what. If he dies before then or when he dies at winter, regardless, he will wake up at the start of each subsequent spring, and you'll get your King in the Woods back. So it explains down here. Let's have a quick look at the Hounds of Kernos. I believe I've put them in the summons. Yeah, there they are. So Orion always has 2 Hounds of Kernos that accompany him. They're not amazing, but it's kind of a flavour thing. That is all of the changes for version 1.7. I was hoping to get Beastmen in as an additional nation, the 19th nation in the mod pack. My friend's been working really hard on that. It's not quite at the point where he's ready to release it, so we're going to wait for the next version, which will probably be in, I don't know, it could be weeks, it could be a bit over a month, I'm not sure. But Beastmen will eventually be coming to the mod, and I hope you guys will enjoy them. I will put a link, of course, to the mod in the description. If you have any feedback you want to leave me, even if it's just to say that you enjoy the mod, that you like the sprites, anything like that. Positive feedback's always nice, but constructive feedback, bugs, balance changes, anything like that you want, or any questions that you have, let me know. And thanks for watching, thanks for playing with my mods, and I hope you guys are having a nice time with them. Bye for now.